Hello and welcome to Anxiety Slayer. I'm Shann, and this episode is brought to you by the Anxiety Slayer Academy. Visit anxietyslayer.com to download our free Anxiety Slayer starter course. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Michelle Racich. Michelle is a board-certified Asian Bodywork Therapist who maintains a Zen Shiatsu clinical practice at Heart of Zen. She's also a teaist who brings 38 years of martial arts, qigong, and Zen background to her training in Chado, the way of tea. Michelle and her husband Doug own Plum Blossom Tea Company, a tea shop and tasting room where they sell whole leaf organic teas, offer gong fu style tea tastings, and host private Japanese tea ceremonies. And let me just tell you, I've had the pleasure of experiencing a tea ceremony, and I absolutely loved it. And then also, Michelle and I have been working together now, I think it's been about a year in her shiatsu practice. So I'm very grateful to her for so many reasons and happy to introduce you to her today. Hello, Michelle. Welcome to Anxiety Slayer.
Hi, Shann. Thank you for inviting me to join this conversation today.
It's so good to have you here. And I'd love to begin our conversation talking about your inspiration to learn Chado, the way of tea, and how that turned into creating Plum Blossom Tea.
As you know, most of our paths are not linear. Chado inspiration probably began with the start of my martial arts studies about 38 years ago. That training included zazen, seated meditation, and enjoying tea as a training family. Tea was not the focus, but about 20 years into my practice, I was able to participate in my first live Japanese tea ceremony and just fell in love. I fell in love because it matched so well the focus and training I had been experiencing through my martial arts work. And yet it was the yin to that yang, if you will. It was so quieting and contemplative and beautiful and respectful. I began my search there for a tea instructor, and it did take me about 10 years to find a tea instructor that was available close by and willing to take me on as a student. And from there, tea just became as important as so many of my other trainings.
On your website, there's a quote that says, "A cup of tea is a cup of peace." And I thought, what a beautiful description.
It is. There are so many rich health benefits that we hear about and talk about around the tea plant, true tea. Often when I share information like these kinds of facts with interested teists, we also recognize that much of the benefit of sitting with a cup of tea is the sitting, the being still, and quieting, that moment of tranquility or peace.
That's how I felt when I came in to have the private ceremony with you. So peaceful, and I didn't really know what to expect when I came in. And what I found was this beautiful exploration, and from the way that you poured the water and mixed the tea leaves and explained to me what was happening, and then the tasting itself and the difference each time you poured the water in, each time the leaf was in the water a little bit longer. I know I'm not saying these, I don't have the terminology down, but just that experience of, wow, this is so nice. And I left feeling relaxed and happy and really wanting to learn more, because there's so much to learn that many don't know about.
The primary motivation for opening the tea shop was exactly what you talked about in your visit. uh, introducing people to small service, quiet, traditional Asian style tea. What I found was when I would tell people, oh, I'm practicing tea, they had no mental picture for it. What does that look like? Is there no tea in the pot? You just pretend to pour? And if you don't come from a tradition of very similar to tea, martial arts training, or you are not have not grown up in an Asian culture, which I have not, other than my martial arts families, being present and having a practice for something so simple as tea can be rather confusing. And so we started the tea shop with the intention of teaching and enjoying tea with people gong fu style, very Chinese style, a little bit less formal, a little bit more comfortable, place for conversation, but the focus being the tea. Then, when I had found my tea teacher and began training in the more choreographed and scripted and Zen style of tea ceremony that comes out of Japan, which is ochakai or chanoyu, the practices are very different. Because I was doing that even before the tea shop opened, I was acquiring a vast array of teas and tea implements. And at one point, we just said, we really should formalize this in a way that makes it available to people to buy really beautiful organic whole leaf teas, to experience matcha in its intended form of ceremony style. And so that's how the shop opened. And what I've discovered is while many people are excited here in the Midwest, we don't have as many opportunities to experience tea this way. They're excited for the novelty, but what they take home is the quieting experience. And that's what I love, is that it shows them how to do this in their own way.
It really was beautiful. And the only thing that I could liken it to while sitting with you is a wine tasting, understanding the complexities of the grapes and the changes between the different harvests. And as I was sitting with you, you were talking with me about the different regions where the teas came from, and the farmers and the small farms and the landscape. And so I was getting a history lesson at the same time as I was having this really interesting experience with all the changes in flavor throughout the steeping process. It was really cool.
Oh, sure. So in the Chinese style of gong fu, when we're re-steeping the same leaf, there's a saying that I had heard growing up that was when you put hot water on tea, it's the agony of the tea leaf. And it just sounds so cruel to pour hot water. And what I later have found through tea study is that it's not the agony of the tea leaf, but rather the release of the agony of the tea leaf. The tea leaf has been dried and is very tightly formed as it's waiting to be enjoyed. And when you put hot water on it, it can release all of that tension and it can open up. It can let go all of this beautiful chemistry that makes flavor and aroma. And we experience that in a very peaceful and enjoyable way. So having this release of agony, this letting go of that tightness, is also one of the great metaphors of tea.
And let's segue over to our listeners, who most are listening in because they struggle with or suffer from anxiety. How can drinking tea support them?
So in Chinese medicine, because tea has been part of the culture for over 5,000 years, more recently in that time enjoyed as a beverage, not just as medicine, there's a lot of very powerful healing that can come from it. And the foundations of Chinese medicine include these 4 pillars of health. They are appropriate mental attitude, proper rest, appropriate exercise to stimulate your circulation, and smooth digestion with a balanced diet. And tea can actually fulfill these pillars all at once. Because of the chemistry of the tea, it can stimulate mental clarity. It can calm your nerves. The tea invigorates your blood and vital energy. That's language of Chinese medicine, to invigorate the blood, to move qi. And at the same time, relax your muscles and reduce fatigue. Tea also can improve your digestion. It can enhance your metabolism. And they also say that it increases longevity. And I really do believe that if you take the time to sit quietly with it.
Sure, sure. Is there a particular kind of tea that you carry at Plum Blossom Tea Company that would be more supportive than another for anxiety and high levels of stress?
Olive tea, the true tea, the Camellia sinensis plant. We don't carry any tisanes or herbals. Everything is true tea. So when you likened tea to grapes earlier, it's very similar. There's one tea plant, like you would say the word grape, and then there are many, many varietals, small leaf, large leaf, trees that are cultivated very tightly for a specific size leaf, varietals that are allowed to grow wild. But the tea itself has some very specific characteristics that run across all of these varieties. Two of those are catechins, or sometimes they're known as tannins, and they give the tea, it's a little bit more stronger, or sometimes people will call it a more bitter flavor. And catechins help protect the body from oxidative damage due to free radicals and toxins, which can influence the way our blood chemistry is and the way it functions in our bodies. Tea also has, all teas have theanine, or sometimes it's called teinin. It's what gives the tea its sweet flavor. And one of the key benefits of this is that it stimulates the alpha brainwaves. Those are the brainwaves that are associated with relaxed but alert mental state. I'm going to give you the quick rundown on tea in general. People often know about green tea, black tea. Some people know about oolong or oolongs.
Okay.
If you think of tea as a color spectrum, green being on one end, those are the tea leaves that are processed in a way that they are hardly oxidized at all, almost no chemical change. They're harvested, they're heated, they're processed, and ready to steep. Oolongs are a category of tea in the middle that is a huge category of oxidation levels from maybe 5% to about 80 to 90%. And they can be light in color and flavor, or they can be more roasty or even more reddish. Far end of the spectrum are black teas. They are fully oxidized. They're dried, they're tight, they're also very flavorful. When you look at that spectrum, all the same plant, but the way it's prepared before you steep it makes a difference in how the chemistry is pulled out by the hot water. Green teas tend to be more cooling in nature. They tend to be closer to their raw state. They tend to be the tea that is better enjoyed if you are warm-blooded or if it is a warm atmosphere. So thinking of harmony with your body chemistry or the atmosphere around you. Oolongs, a very long range of teas, are also known for their digestive qualities because they are slightly oxidized to more oxidized. They don't have quite as rough of an edge for your digestion. So people who have stomach issues might choose something that's not green, but more in a oolong category. Black teas are very warming. they are why often we think of black tea as the tea we want to hold in our hands, a mug of hot black tea, because they are energetically warming. Also, you steep them all at different temperatures. You steep a black tea at the hottest temperature, just off the boil, a oolong a little bit lower, and a green tea even lower than that.
I was most surprised by my experience with the green tea when I was with you. It tasted so much different, so much better than any experience I'd ever had with green tea. I came in, I wasn't even sure that I wanted to taste it, honestly, because yeah.
I remember you said, I don't do green teas.
then we decided, well, why not? Let's give this a try. And it was nutty and buttery and it was cooling compared to the other tea. And I just was just floored by the experience and realizing that the first experiences that I had were just, they don't count anymore because
Yeah. I know. Once you taste beautiful quality tea, you can never go back.
Where does your tea come from? And tell us a little bit more about what makes it extraordinary.
We have cultivated relationships with tea makers and tea buyers who we've met here in the US. Several of the people we work with actually are couples, and they live, one member of the couple is Asian and one American, and so they live half of their year here in the US, half in Asia. All our Chinese teas, for example, we work with the same couple to help us find small farmers who are growing in organic or pesticide-free ways. And then each year they will help us to make some selections on teas. We work with another woman who's Taiwanese to get teas from Taiwan. I have two families I work with to get the teas we have from Japan. And there's one woman that is from Vietnam who had made the connections for us with the farmers in Vietnam.
I love it. Personal relationships, small batches, beautiful, beautiful tea. Let's segue a little bit about your practice as a Zen Shiatsu practitioner. You've been doing that for many years, and that's actually how I met you. And I'd love for just a little conversation around how Shiatsu can also support our listeners who are suffering with anxiety, and then an aside to that, how it's different from acupuncture.
Oh, sure. So Zen Shiatsu is a manual therapy that comes from a Japanese tradition. It is part of a bigger understanding of Chinese medicine. And in Chinese medicine, as it's been practiced traditionally, and I use that word with a small t, as in classical Chinese medicine, manual medicine included touch work and needlework, and then a lot of subcategories there, cupping, gua sha. But all of those were one form of Chinese medicine considered manual medicine. And then the other half of Chinese medicine is herbal medicine. Here in the US, there's a very big distinction between acupuncture and Chinese herbs and everything else. All of those work off the same medical model. Acupuncture uses needles. Zen Shiatsu is a form of acupressure. So no needles, just handwork. Thumbs. Shiatsu actually means thumb pressure. That's the literal translation of that kanji. but it is full body work. And the touch work helps to stimulate the energetic system. Asian Bodywork Therapy is often what you'll hear it called here in the US. And it promotes and maintains and helps restore the whole range of the energetic being, from physical to emotional to mental and spiritual health and well-being. We're energetic beings, and the densest of our energy is our body, our muscles, our tissue, our blood. And the more expansive of our energy, or our electromagnetic field, as sometimes it's biomedically referred to, is how we think and feel, how we emote, and what our spiritual understanding of ourselves is. When you receive a treatment that is touch work, that touches your whole body, you're connecting with all of that. The Chinese understanding of whole health is body, mind is one. And so the work can help to reset the sympathetic, parasympathetic response. So you're not in constant reaction, and helps you to experience what it feels like to be whole and connected, so that you can walk that path over and over, so that that becomes the way you respond, rather than in this fight or flight response.
Well, I can tell you that after a year of working with you, it's just amazing how much you've brought forward and enriched my life through shiatsu, now tea, through some of the qigong that you've taught me. It's just, there's such a big difference in energy and flow and emotion, all of it. I can really tell, and I always feel so very, very good after I spend time with you and leave the table, because we're making very expansive.
It's very much my tea practice and my shiatsu practice are really just about reminding people what it feels like to be at peace with yourself, to experience tranquility, which doesn't always mean still, but being present in a joyful way.
Yes. And I know that all of the anxiety slayers listening in, they're looking for that peace. And tea would be a beautiful exploration. And Ananga and I have talked about tea quite a bit, but we haven't talked about plum blossom tea, and the relationship and the ceremony and what I had the pleasure of experiencing with you. So I'm so glad that you brought that forward today and taught us a little bit more. And then certainly for our listeners all over the world, look for a shiatsu practitioner if that sounds like something interesting to you. And of course, if you're here in Northern Michigan, reach out to Michelle for sure. Back to the tea conversation. Where can people go? Where can they get in touch with you to learn more about your offerings and to buy tea?
So we're physically located in Suttons Bay, Michigan. You can find us online at plumblossom.tea.com. My shiatsu practice is right next door. It's easy to find me that way as well.
Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with today, Michelle, before we move on?
The reason we named Plum Blossom Tea Company is because the plum blossom in Japanese history was the national tree before the cherry blossom. And it was that because the plum tree bloomed first. Snow on the ground in the higher regions, full of cool air. And here in northern Michigan, we have that same experience. The plum blossom blooms first of the fruit trees. And so it's a sign of hope. It's a sign that the rhythms of nature will continue even when we are cold and forget. And we loved the idea of tea being that reminder that the seasons continue. We always have hope that the fruits of our work will appear. And it just seemed like such an appropriate name for what we wanted to do with tea.
Plum Blossom Tea Company tasting room and retail shop offers premium matcha, Asian teas, and teaware. Come learn how to properly whisk a bowl of matcha or how to enjoy an aged pu'er. Visit Michelle in person or online and expand your tea awareness and purchase your favorites. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a pleasure talking with you today about tea and learning more about what you bring forward and how you care for so many in our community.
Thank you so much, Shann. This has been my pleasure.
Learn how to stop an anxiety attack anywhere and anytime with a special tapping sequence you can use at work, social events, or doctor's visits. We will show you exactly how to use this powerful technique to feel calm again in just a couple of minutes. Enroll in the First Responder Series for anxiety attacks today and save $20 for a limited time at anxietyslayer.com.